On May 1st, 1941, Aaron Bachmann volunteered for the Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler, Germany's elite military unit. A native of Berlin, he had long admired these imposing soldiers during city parades and while they stood guard at the Reich Chancellery. Their smart uniforms, evident camaraderie, and physical presence, all standing at least 1.82 meters tall, had captured his imagination. Now he would join their ranks. As the German offensive pushed eastward, Bachmann's unit advanced toward Kherson, engaging in battles from August 19 to 22, 1941. His 1st Battalion stormed the village of Snay-Ruska, where the Russians retreated, abandoning vast quantities of weapons and ammunition. The advance continued southward toward the Caucasus, with Mariupol and Taganrog falling in succession. The latter surrendered on October 17th. During the advance from Mariupol to Taganrog, Bachmann experienced his first taste of the war's unpredictability. His unit halted roadside while a patrol conducted reconnaissance. They returned with alarming news. Russian units were moving westward, potentially to outflank them. Bachmann's company quickly established machine gun positions along the railroad embankment and prepared their mortars. The ensuing battle was brief but decisive. The Russians withdrew, leaving behind substantial equipment. At Taganrog, Bachmann's unit captured the harbor, port buildings, and a strategically important radio station atop a nearby hill. They found the station abandoned, its aerial destroyed, and floors flooded with mercury from sabotaged equipment. A large vessel attempting to flee the harbor was sunk by their 88mm anti-aircraft guns, its half-submerged hulk still visible when Bachmann went on leave to France in 1942. The advance continued eastward until they were forced to dig in. For 3 weeks, they held defensive positions across a wide sector. Bachmann manned a telephone line between command post and the 3rd Platoon. The conditions were miserable, incessant rain and continuous artillery bombardment. During one barrage, a Russian shell exploded near his trench, destroying his telephone and grenade supply. The blast left him temporarily deaf and shell-shocked, but alive. As casualties mounted and ammunition dwindled, they waited in their trenches with fixed bayonets, expecting a Russian assault. Instead, Russian soldiers appeared with raised hands, surrendering while their commissars fled. Every shot counted, Bachmann recalled, watching as they fired at the retreating political officers. The offensive on Rostov began November 20th, 1941. Dense morning fog delayed their start until 11 a.m. When the tanks hit anti-tank ditches and stopped, the infantry unusually continued advancing, a departure from standard doctrine. They entered Rostov the next day, but were forced to abandon it by December 2nd. The enemy proved too strong, and they had outrun their supply lines. With no winter clothing and diesel fuel freezing in their tanks, the retreat became a desperate struggle. One soldier would sit in the cab with a fuel can while another poured fuel directly into the engine, the only way to keep vehicles running. They spent Christmas and New Year's Eve in frozen trenches, making their dugouts as comfortable as possible with improvised lamps fashioned from tin cans filled with fuel oil. In January 1942, they moved to a village where they constructed machine gun nests in houses, luxurious by their standards. Spring revealed war's gruesome reality. Melting snow exposed frozen corpses that quickly began decomposing. The stench was unbearable. When finally withdrawn and replaced by police units, Russian loudspeakers bid them farewell. Have a good time in France. This was how Bachmann learned his division would be sent to France for rest and refitting. Near Kharkov in 1942, they again took defensive positions in deep snow and severe frost. Ordered to run telephone wire to a neighboring unit, Bachmann encountered a Russian women's battalion. It was terrifying, he recalled. They jumped from their trenches, screaming like witches. I thought I was finished. He barely escaped. But days later, when Russians overran their positions, his friend wasn't so fortunate. The Russians killed their wounded, including Bachmann's fellow telephone operator, suffocated with pliers forced down his throat. During the 1943 Kharkov battles, positions changed hands repeatedly. In one engagement, Bachmann's squad used deception to escape encirclement. With their interpreter shouting orders in Russian, they jumped one by one from a window and fled past surprised Soviet soldiers. The street fighting for Kharkov was brutal. The Leibstandarte and Das Reich divisions attacked on March 6th, breaking into the city 2 days later. During the battle, Bachmann witnessed an Oberscharführer disappear through a doorway while clearing a building, never to be seen again, likely captured by the Russians. At Kursk in July 1943, history's greatest tank battle, Bachmann was wounded while crossing a forest. Artillery shells bursting in the treetops created such a storm of shrapnel that every second man was hit. A fragment struck Bachmann's right shoulder, penetrated his lung, passed millimeters from his heart, and lodged between his ribs. Partially blinded, he was evacuated to a field hospital. The journey to proper medical care was harrowing. Even marked medical vehicles received no mercy from Russian artillery. At the first aid station, Bachmann lay on straw, watching more severely wounded men die around him. During surgery, given only weak painkillers, he fought to stay conscious, fearing he'd never wake if he blacked out. Eventually, reaching an SS hospital in Vienna after bureaucratic struggles, X-rays revealed the shrapnel between his ribs. It remained in his body permanently, a lifelong reminder of Kursk. By April 1945, the war's end was approaching. Now commanding a heavy machine gun squad near Lichtenberg, Bachmann witnessed the Wehrmacht's final collapse. On April 20th, Hitler's birthday, the Russians attacked at 2:30 a.m., suffering heavy losses. A second assault at 5:30 a.m., preceded by intense artillery, broke their lines. Their machine gun barrels glowed red hot from continuous firing. The most horrific sight came when Russian tanks appeared with German women and children tied to their gun barrels, human shields preventing the Germans from firing. We stood silently watching, Bachmann remembered, unable to do anything. Leadership disintegrated. Their regimental commander committed suicide. Officers disappeared, leaving an 18-year-old fresh from officer school in command. Bachmann's unit joined the chaotic westward flight, a column mixing soldiers from every service branch with desperate refugees. They encountered Seydlitz troops, German POWs fighting for the Soviets, repeatedly. These turncoats wore German uniforms but carried Soviet rifles, commanded by Red Army commissars. During one forest ambush, a Wehrmacht officer demanded they shoot a captured Seydlitz soldier. Bachmann and his comrades refused, telling the officer to do it himself if he wished. The retreat became a desperate struggle for survival. Finding a cache of alcohol, they mixed it with apple juice. "We never would have escaped without that liquor," Bachmann admitted. Threading between Russian artillery positions, they ran between shell bursts across open ground. On April 28th, Bachmann's group reached the Elbe River near Jericho. They discovered a half-submerged barge filled with confiscated luxuries, sugar, candies, chocolate. Stuffing their pockets with sweets, they hid in bushes from American observers across the river. When a general's staff tried commandeering their boat, they agreed to cross first, then returned for the officers. Crossing at night, they stumbled into a sleeping American artillery position. Slipping past undetected, they reached an SS field hospital at Königslutter, where Bachmann remained until May 13th. His military service ended ignominiously, captured by former concentration camp inmates and handed to the British. Bachmann spent 3 years and 8 months in British captivity, released on Christmas Eve, 1948. Unable to return to Soviet-occupied Berlin, he remained voluntarily in Britain, becoming a citizen on November 5, 1955. His memoir presents an unvarnished soldier's perspective, neither glorifying nor condemning, simply recording the brutal realities of a war that transformed him from an idealistic volunteer, admiring parade ground soldiers, into a battle-hardened survivor who chose exile over returning to a homeland that no longer existed. The shrapnel between his ribs served as a permanent reminder of a war that consumed his youth and shaped his entire life. Through Bachmann's eyes, we see the Wehrmacht's transformation from triumphant conquerors sweeping across Russia to desperate fugitives fleeing westward, their elite units reduced to grabbing chocolates from an abandoned barge while evading former comrades now fighting for their enemies. A soldier's eye view of an army's complete destruction.